Hey, Denise
Hello,
Rokicki, how you
good
do?
afternoon. I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, my spirit is uplifted by the sunlight coming in the window and by conversations I've had and by being surrounded by beauty. I'm really conscious to surround myself by beauty and also looking metaphorically at beauty. I'm pleased with a lot of decisions I've made to have love and loving people in my life. And yet my soul is troubled. My soul is troubled. I'm an American, and well, it's been 4 years since I've woken up uh, scared. Who's going to be harmed? Who's going to be harmed today?
Our
Who's
whole
not going to have
country
food?
is being traumatized s- every day a little bit more. Oh, it's really hard.
It is hard, my friend, and who better than us to like bring it home to talk about this because this is fresh traumatization. But
Yes.
we who have been traumatized, which is a significant number of us in America, everywhere, we are being re traumatized. And that's a whole special thing. And we might talk about that. What the hell is re traumatization? And how can I deal with it? Our coping isn't just enough. How can I how can I stay on my pathway to recovery and feeling like I'm part of a beautiful life rather than
Right.
be a survivor, a reactor, a person who's scared all the time, who's going to knock on the door. And if they're not knocking yet on my door, they are, because you and I both we're like trees with roots that go out, or a saguaro cactus that has roots that go all over the place. And when somebody's hurting, that we know we hurt, like Head Start. You and I both love us some Head Start. What
Right.
do you know? What's going on with Head Start? Is it safe?
There is money frozen right now. And so
And what does
some
that mean to
program
everyday kids and teachers?
I have not heard of any places closing or not receiving their paychecks.
Okay.
But, the way grants work is they get the chunk and then they use it from their own bank account. So, or from the grantee or whatever. So it might, even though the money's frozen, if it's already money that they have, they will still work with the program. But when it's time to get their next chunk, is what we have to worry about.
Right. And what's the point? Let's get down to the goodness and evil of this. What's the point of messing with Head Start programs and Head Start children, do you think?
I mean, our country hasn't bragged that much about the Head Start program, but the Head Start and I think part of the reason they haven't bragged that much is because they don't want this threat of it being
Mhm.
demolished. But it is so helpful in every community where it is. It trains teachers. It helps parents. It gives eye appointments, ear appointments, speech pathologists, special ed. I mean, it's better than public schools in some ways, I think, because of the federal requirements that we promise we're going to do this and we have to do it. Public schools report to the state. And I just don't, I think some states are loose, some states are tight. I just think that the federal regulations around Head Start and the desire to make it the best possible situation for families, that it is amazing. It's an amazing program.
I agree with you. And yet it's a well kept secret.
It has
Why?
been well kept. I
Why
used to
do
always say, why don't they brag about it?
Well, why don't
commercials
they,
about
honey?
the beauty of Father Night or, you know,
Good
anything.
dads. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, everything. They really every year focus on a new topic and you learn that topic to the best of your ability. Then next year there's a new focus, and it's just a really beautiful, progressive, growth oriented program.
Hmm. And why did it start? Do you know, what do you remember about that?
When I remember, it was in the 60s, and it was basically started as a nutrition program for poor children
Hmm.
in
Is
the
that what
60s. I believe.
Sergeant Shriver, one of the Kennedy clan, he was involved with that, right?
Right. It was the war on poverty, I believe, was
Hmm.
the original thing, but it started as a let's get healthy meals for these kiddos so that
Wow, I didn't know that.
so
Okay,
that when they go to kindergarten, they had breakfast and lunch
that's
and
huge.
snacks. And that's what it evolved from. Then they added education component. Then they added health component. Then they added family participation. And honestly, it was developed with sense for both sides of the people. You know, there was documentation, so
Mhm.
the Republicans were happy, and there was education and
Community involvement for the Democrat.
right, right. It was put together with community in mind, and it really is a model. I'd love to see public schools modeled that way as well.
Yeah, it's a model. One of the things I've always seen it as a model for is parent involvement.
Right,
You can't bring your kid to Head Start without them at Head Start caring about you and caring about the family's good health, and is the family getting the services it needs. And as I say that, I get a little, if I were a scaredy cat, I would say, oh, shh, 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 don't talk about that.
right.
These services
But
were.
they do.
That's
The
right.
teachers do 4 meetings a year with parents, uh,
Yep.
2 home visits, 2 parent-teacher conferences at the center. Um,
Yep.
there's a monthly food experience that they can come and bring siblings to learn how to make, you know, a caterpillar apple or whatever.
Mhm.
You every month there would be that. So the little ones, like I knew some of my students as babies because they came to their brother's food experience. There's also
Describe
monthly.
it. Tell me what, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to lose this. What was a concrete example of a food experience that the whole family could get involved with? Was this about feeding people?
It was about the children exploring food, like,
Okay.
and it was normally at a typical snack time. Uh, that was the time, but we invited the families to come back early for their end of the day snack.
Okay.
And so it could be peanut butter and celery with raisins on it. I mean, we had nutritionists who designed the monthly food experience. So it was, they put it together as much by
Mhm.
themselves as possible. Like we'd have strawberries to cut or bananas that they could cut themselves. That we demonstrated for the parents how to encourage independent food consumption.
Healthy, independent food consumption that children themselves can co-create or create. I mean,
Right,
it's tough like my son has challenges with knives when he was a little guy, and that's something that approaching that in a community setting where there's a lot of safety around and where it's
right,
okay to say, I'm scared of using a knife, or boy, when I hold this knife, I don't want to let it go, you
right.
know. there's a lot to that, to doing that in a safe place. And then the purpose isn't using the knife. The purpose is how using the knife to co-create something that I want to eat. Like I'm a celery boring, but put some peanut butter on that and let's make it into a snowman by putting, let's put
This
some
on it or
raisins on
that.
top.
Yeah, every month it would be a different type of thing. We could learn how to cut apples and make it into the shape of a heart, and then sprinkle honey on top and nuts. Or if you're nut for, a lot of
Colors.
places went nut free, so but then they quit that. So I don't know. But we would use nuts, chopped nuts, some bananas with chocolate chips poked into them. So you're getting your fine motor, you're getting sharing. It's just every part of Head Start was amazing. I am
It,
so glad that for my experience with that
yeah.
program.
And what we're getting at here is, because we're talking trauma and we're talking re-traumatization, and both Denise and I have a lot of respect for, and I have admiration for, and I have a heartfelt commitment to. I think I'm speaking for Denise too. We both have a heartfelt commitment to what Head Start does, and it's on the chopping block.
It
So
is on
why would
shopping block.
something that is so helpful be on the chopping block? And I want to say one other area that we haven't even talked about. I entered Head Start by working with the adults in Head Start.
Right.
And I got it that um, people who come to work for Head Start are choosing to change their lives. They're choosing to enter a community where they will have challenges to grow, opportunities to meet people and build a community, opportunities to continuously learn about
Yes,
themselves, about the world. And each year a teacher comes back, it's new. I
it
mean,
is.
you were teacher Denise, you built upon things that you knew worked. But
Right.
if you had a child that had, like, maybe, did you ever have a runner or a climber, one of the children
I
that just,
I have a special ed background, and people right away saw that I was good with special needs. So I
mm-hmm,
had special ed kids or special needs kids or traumatized kids
mm-hmm,
every year. I had autistic, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. I mean,
mm-hmm. And
every
how,
shape, every color.
I got you,
Every
girl.
culture,
Every
Navajo.
different family. You had Navajo kids you were in Arizona.
Yeah, they go by Dene, but we call them Navajo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Right.
worked with those
Yeah, there are many
families,
tribes in Arizona.
did home visits at their place. It was awesome.
It's remarkable. And it's remarkable. The thing about Head Start is that it's a learning environment for everybody. It's a learning environment, first and foremost, for the child that comes that would not have otherwise had a chance to learn like this.
Right. To
Second,
be in a formal school
right,
setting with rules, safety, activities, touching things that they would never get to touch at home. I mean, even Play-Doh, parents at home would be freaked out about Play-Doh, even though it dries up and you can vacuum it right off the carpet, even no matter how shaggy it is. It's very easy to clean up. But they wouldn't play with Play-Doh at home because they're trying to keep a clean house as opposed to provide opportunities for a child to develop fine motor skills from pinching stuff.
right. And the other thing about Play-Doh is it could be very expensive for some people. Oh my God, I have to buy it
Oh,
at the store. But what do they find out when they go to Head Start? They
you
find
can
out
make your own.
we can make it. We can make purple Play-Doh if we want to.
Right.
We can make marble Play-Doh. We can, I mean, we can together buy a bunch of stuff and each family
Right. Take
can
home
take
some
some
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh.
They would take it away from them immediately and throw in the garbage.
Oh, that's so sad. But
I
look
know. But they
what's
did,
happening.
some didn't, some didn't. There were, some people were freaked out about it. Same thing like paint,
Oh, yeah.
there's not that many low income families that have a paint easel child size with cups of paint that they can easily use multiple colors. Well, it depends on your teacher. Some teachers will put out 2 colors. Me, I had 7 colors the first
Right.
day on both sides.
Good, 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 good. But
Because,
what you're saying here is Head Start deals with expectations and expectations on children without financial flexibility. They have poor kids on the lower part of the economic scale. Expectations are low.
right,
They're low. Of course they're low, because if I can't eat breakfast, I can't think when I get to class.
right.
If there's no, if everybody's bringing her lunch to school and I don't have a lunch to bring to school, I'm not going to eat, and I'm not going to let people know I don't have a lunch. Or if I have to pay for lunch and I don't have enough money to pay for lunch, I'm not going to eat lunch. And this is despicable,
It
because
is.
every child deserves to grow and learn. But what we're doing, if we don't allow that, is we cut off a whole bunch of kids. And Nazi Germany was real good at this, and the United States Supreme Court, I hate to say this, but it's true, the Bradley case in 1929. It was more than the economy that crashed in 1929. The Bradley case in 1929 said, Denise, that, and here's the quote: 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. And so what the Bradley case allowed was sterilization of people who were seen as feeble-minded. And if you were declared as feeble-minded, I'm sure you studied this when you were studying, special needs. Feeble-minded people were not seen as worthy of continuation on this earth. What good were they? And so when Hitler, and some states in the United States, including California, allowed for the sterilization of people who are feeble-minded, because who wants 3 generations, 2 generations, 1 generation of people that can't pull their weight, produce anything but babies, right?
Right.
You can't produce, you can't, we don't want you. And isn't it stunning that the people that can produce are the people that have the money to produce?
Right.
Isn't it stunning that the children that do well in school are the children that get a breakfast in the morning?
Right.
They have people that can drive them to school or that can get them to school. They have people that will have lights in their house so that they can do their homework at night and not have them turned off. Yeah. So this awfulness, this bias against children who are Head Start worthy is, I think, akin to the bias against feeble-minded people. And that whole history, which I've examined about IQ, about what's intelligence, whatever field you're in, intelligence matters. How we define it matters. And so, thank God, 1980 something, Dr. Howard Gardner, down the street here in Cambridge, Mass, he said, wait a minute, we got multiple intelligences. And what does that mean, Denise? When you had a classroom of kids, what did it mean to you, for you, the kids, and your other teachers, that there were multiple intelligences? Why was that important?
Well, interestingly, I had this conversation this morning with one of my tutoring clients' mothers. She's 5 years old. Whoop, where'd you go?
I'm right here, honey.
I know, I just moved it. She
Okay.
is 5 years old in preschool. And, if you sit next to her and say, what are these letters? She can't do it.
Okay. Yeah.
If you ask her to count, but in a demanding way, she can't count. And so they're recommending that she stay back in preschool. And her mom does not want her to stay back in preschool. Her mom wants her to go to kindergarten. And so I was explaining to her today that school systems to me, they serve 1/3 of the children.
And what's that 1/3, sweetie?
They're, they easily recognize letters. They learn the sounds of letters right away. They're the often it used to be boys that were, that fit
Mhm.
into that triangle. And well, certain boys, smart boys. Then but
However you define smart.
right. But these preschool, wherever she goes, if you give her the right supports, which I do for tutoring,
Hmm.
she knows what every letter looks like. She can see the letter and match it to a letter that's matching. It might even be a little different, like even if the T is curved or
Hmm.
the Q is straight down instead of curved, she can
Hmm.
match those
Good for her.
letters by
Okay.
visualizing. And they say she only knows the L, but like today we did her name, Luciana, because I taught her the first day, L, baby, you got the L. And she has remembered that and she took it home and she's really proud of her L and now she knows her L. She didn't know her L before that because nobody worked with her on it
Yeah.
that way,
Right.
And so today, after this is our third time tutoring, and her mom got her bad report yesterday at preschool that they still want to hold her back to preschool. And by the third time that we spelled her name, because we do papers, her
Hmm.
homework papers from school, which today was K, which they can't even fucking see K, that angle, their brain
Yes.
doesn't register.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it doesn't. So that was her homework today. And I'm like, oh my God. But
Ah,
we did it. But
wait, at what age can a child see the angle?
it's it's not preschool. I know that for a fact. There
Wow.
nearly none of even what we see as the brightest star of academia, those that fit that 1/3
Hmm.
wedge, they don't see that K at preschool.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. And all the children that have names like Conrad or Katrina or
Kendra,
Catherine or
right,
Katie or Kay, what are they going to do with that? I
right.
remember,
They
yeah,
make it. It's interesting how they make it. Like I still would present it, as required by, the academic group,
right.
and it's funny how they see it. Sometimes it looks
Wow.
like an F. Sometimes it's interesting, but they just don't see that.
I mean,
They
that
know
makes
start at the
sense.
top. Right. They don't get that part. That
Yeah.
angle is not available to their snaps.
So I remember what was going on inside of my brain when I was 4 years old, and I had to learn the way the first grade teacher was teaching the alphabet. And she said the letter B, and I knew B because my last name began with a B. So I figured it out. I said B must be a B. So I drew a bumblebee like a letter. And so it was a very creative B, very creative, but it made sense to me. There's the top of the B, there's the second part of the B. Let's put some, I mean, it was, and she was like, oh, wow. I knew
Furious,
she
right.
was wrong. I knew she was wrong. I said, wait, this is a B. You can't tell me that's not a B. And no, that's not the way we do it. She was so upset with me. But somehow I got it that I knew what I was doing.
Good for you.
And I didn't learn that at home. Nobody at home said, well, oh, good for you. No, everybody said you're getting it wrong. But that's fascinating because maybe my brain at 4 years old was not into
Right,
seeing the straight and the curve together,
right. The linear, right,
unless it was, I could put it into my context. And my context was the out of doors. And I knew a bee. I studied those. I
right,
saw those guys. I knew what they were like. And
right.
so, and I knew that they had some straight leg stuff, but they mostly had these soft things, you know? Anyway, what I'm saying here is back to Head Start and traumatization and
Right. Well, there's two
Yeah, go.
other learning styles that do not get the tactile learner and the auditory learner do not get. I mean, there are some tactile teachers, myself was one. So I did better with tactile kids.
Mhm.
And there are some teachers that are the auditory learners. They learn by listening, not by looking. And then there are some kids, a small group, they fit into somewhere else in the pie. They just know. Some kids just know. They're intuitive and they know. And that's awesome. So those kids get the least attention because they already know.
Right. That's true. That's true. And here's the deal. Head Start is a change agent for the better.
Right.
It changes the mix in this country from just the kids with money, just the kids that are white, just the kids that are traditional and raised in traditional ways. It changes that dynamic from those kids being the ones that get education to embracing
All the styles.
all the styles, all the learning styles, all of the cultural ways of respecting. For example, I was speaking at a conference in not Santa Cruz, but someplace in New Mexico. And it was the annual conference for the state association. And there was a man speaking, Dr. So-and-so, who spoke Spanish. And I wanted to hear him. I was early on learning how to do keynotes. And I went in and he's told the story and everybody was interested in the story. And then he said, and now I'm going to do my keynote. And he read his keynote. And after like a minute, I'm gone. I'm not fascinated by, I can read. I don't need something reading to me. But I looked around and people were rapt. And afterwards, I said, with this putting my feelings to the side as much as I could, I said to folks, how was the keynote for you? Oh, he's wonderful. And I said, well, tell me something that you got out of it. Well, I don't remember, but he really was a smart man. And I made a decision then that I would respect the people who came to keynotes and I would give them a chance to speak out and speak up and to say, I don't agree with you. Or wait a minute, here's how we do it. Or here's a question I have about that. So it would be interactive keynotes. And yet it was a mixed thing, Denise, because what I learned was in that culture in New Mexico, a lot of Mexican Americans, even looking a teacher, especially a professor, in the eye was disrespectful.
Right.
And so they were being respectful of what their culture said was worthy of respect, which was an educated person, an educated man, and with his PhD, he had all the credential there, and they were going to show him respect.
Right.
And I got how important it is that he be shown respect, because put him in a traditional white university and he's going to be on the outs.
Right.
At least 30 years ago, if not yesterday, he's going to be on the outs. So the thing about Head Start is, first off, it educates everybody. And it's not just about educating, which is giving information too. Educating. I love the Latin of this. It means to lead people out of themselves, which means to let people see their strengths inside. So a mama, there's a book for Head Start called Something Better for My Children, written by a woman who was like a parent. Right. And then she did a little volunteering because they needed her to come to class. And then the teacher said, well, do you think you could do this? Do you think you could do that? And so eventually that parent that didn't think she had any intelligence at all, nothing to give,
nothing to join the community with.
And what happens to them, Denise? You've seen this.
She made bean bags for the whole damn school. We had 8 classrooms and She came every day dedicated to sewing and filling bean bags so that everybody had a bean bag with their name painted on it. And I mean, you know, they do beautiful things.
They do beautiful things. And if they're so inclined, if they've got a capacity to be with children, then the teacher's going to say, you know, I'd love for
Hey,
you to be.
right. Hey, if you are
Say,
you interested in taking a child development class? And
I can't do school. I don't know how to do school.
oh
I don't,
yes, you can. We're going to be here to help you. And
but no, I always get bad grades. I'm stupid. The teachers always say I'm stupid.
oh no, that won't happen here. You're going to find out what you're good at and you're going to build on that.
Are you going to be here with me? Because I'm afraid if they call on me,
Yeah,
I'm just going to.
I even have my own CDA binder from years ago. You can use it to organize your binder.
You got a CDA? I thought you were
I
born with a PhD.
well, I do have a little PhD too.
What's beautiful here, and there's a book called Something Better for My Children. It's about a parent who was written out of LA, a parent who, you know, was like helping out in the classroom, and then the teacher helped her see, you know, I'd really like you to come and be a teacher's aide. You're great with the children. And then same thing as you just said, the teacher said, you know, I would love it if you could just get what we call a credential so you could get paid for doing what you're doing because you're doing really important work here.
Exactly.
And so the woman usually says, well, I'm not smart, you know, all this stuff. But we meet people where they are and find out where their smarts are. And that's why in the 1980s, when Dr. Howard Gardner wrote Multiple Intelligences, he was saying, don't just look at that tiny percentage you mentioned that just gets
Right.
it. Look at the child. Like I am the unusual, I think you're calling it tactile, and I learned it's called what is it called?
Kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic.
Right.
Kinesthetic. I had to be doing things, you
Right.
know, I had to be moving in my body. Now that's part of the Italian thing, but it's also just not every Italian has that, but I have to feel it in my body. When I do, I'm good. But sitting through 3 years of law school, geez, and crow, you know, or you know, sitting through stuff is so hard. So
Modern
the
American history, modern European history.
English
It's
grammar.
my two 5 hour D's. But you know, I still was on the dean's list when I was taking all education classes. I
Yeah,
shined because that was my natural talent.
right.
And I thought I was dumb until college, really. I just did not think I was smart because I didn't fit that 1/3% that, you know, I mean, my sister did. Like she was academically smart, but not a lick of common sense in that brain. So this is this is the dilemma of education today is that we need to serve more percentages, you
But
know.
I agree with you, honey, but that's only if what we want is an educated electorate. If we want people, everybody, like my idea of heaven, very simple. Each person finds her gift and gives her gift back, shares it, and appreciates another person's gift. I mean, I shall never forget with my sister in Ohio, and she was in, oh dear, just outside of north of Gahanna. Anyway, when she was in Ohio and she was in a nursing home, this is the woman with her PhD and her JD degree. She's in a nursing home with this awful disease, which is robbing her. It's an autoimmune thing, and it's classic of trauma survivors. And she's like, can't do anything anymore. And she had such fine motor skill that she could make quilted. She made a kilt. You know how those kilts have to be stitched down so perfectly?
Right.
A reversible kilt. She made a 3-piece suit for her husband. She made me a sheath back in the day. It was one of those. I mean, she did all this stuff, and she had no more capacity. And she was a home economics major, and she was exquisite at cooking and baking. She couldn't taste things anymore. and she had a feeding tube for 8 years. What I'm trying to say here is she could have been seen as totally useless,
Right.
but I would go and sit with her and I would say, so Karen, tell me about the meaning, because I wanted to feel like she was getting some sense of connection. And I said, so tell me what do you feel is meaningful? I believe I asked it in a way that was sensitive and not saying, you ain't got much meaning left. No, I didn't do that, but I asked her what gives you meaning every day? And she said, until she couldn't say anymore because she couldn't talk after a while, she said, praying. I can always pray. And I just shared that almost a week ago, I was doing a program on resilience for the Community Action for Young Children, the CALE program. And we were talking about resilience. What do you do if everything is taken away? If everything you care about is gone? You don't have anything anymore, and nobody cares about you anymore. And that we're basically just, what do we do with animals? We love them, but when they're falling apart and they can't poop outside anymore and they're hurting, what do? We put them out of their misery.
Right.
So what would happen with a person like my sister Karen if she didn't have the money, which she did,
Right.
to keep herself in a nursing home? And deeper than that was, what was it inside of her that helped her feel like she had a life of meaning?
Prayer.
And that was it. Now, I'm not religious, and it's fine with me whether you're religious or not. I respect you either way. She was very religious, and that gave her life meaning. And I was like really thrilled with that, because I knew when I was back in Massachusetts and she's out there in Ohio, that she was having a meaningful time. I mean, we would sing hymns together, and because I had to learn all those hymns when I was a kid,
Right.
all those hymns, and she couldn't sing after a while, but she was just accompany as much as she could. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, if we go back to Head Start and we go back to what's considered worthy now in the United States of America, and we look at the fact that USAID, which is America helping people in other countries where children don't eat or where people don't get medication, and that's being stopped. What are we saying? And if in this country we say, Head Start, don't need that, come on. Pull yourself. What are we saying? We don't need that. What are we saying we don't need?
We don't need people. Poor people, imbeciles, whatever they want to call us.
Feeble-minded.
Feeble-minded, right.
Right. Anybody who's different. We don't want anybody who's different. We just want people that are going to fit in to this very narrow belief system that money is God.
Right.
And then if you're rich, you can control everything. If you're rich, you can become the president of the United States.
Yeah.
If you're rich, you can buy the president of the United States.
If you have a rich friend, they can get you elected.
Correct. And if you're white and male to boot, you got a pretty good chance. So the thing that moved me greatly was when Raphael Warnock was elected senator in the state of Georgia. Nobody expected this. I mean, what's her name? That wonderful woman, Stacey Abrams, brilliant woman. She doesn't get elected, but she works her tail off to make sure that other people get elected. So here's Raphael Warnock. I'm watching, and he's getting votes and he's getting votes. And what does he say when he's elected? He refers to his mom and he says, the hands that picked cotton. And that effing hurts to pick cotton. Well, it hurts. I mean, it's like really hurts because there are all these prickers and things, and you got to get the soft part. Anyway, the hands that pick cotton this week voted to select her son for the Senate of the United States of America. And you know what? Why am I talking about him? Because Raphael Warnock is a Head Start alumnus.
Right.
It's no accident that that man is so committed to his community, to his people, to helping other people rise up, to education, to giving people possibilities, to not shutting people down, to open, to listening to people. All of those core, Head Start's got these core values. And the core values are basically add up to one word, and that's RESPECT.
Right. Including hope. So this is what they're taking away when they take this away. Hope
That's
for
right.
the future. Progression. Hope for progressive changes. And they're going to try to take as much as they can.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And what you're talking, when we did this series not series, we did this program last Thursday, there were three of us. One was a Muslim American who's faced a lot of stuff. The other was an Indigenous American who's faced a lot of stuff. And then there's me, the incest survivor, the trauma survivor, the neurodiverse person. Three of us, and we're being asked, so what is resilience? And the first thing I came to, Denise, is what you just said. Resilience is having hope, no matter how awful the circumstances. And
Yeah.
What's his name? This guy, the great guy who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, said, the last of the human freedoms is to choose my attitude in any given set of circumstances. So if I'm a little kid and I look around and I see that all the other little Black kids are going in that direction, or I'm a little kid like you and I look around and I say, well, I'm not smart in school.
Right.
What can I do? Or I'm a little kid like me and I see that, oh, my father hates women. So all I can do at best is become a battered wife. If I have hope, how can I find hope? Well, it's deep inside of me. And it's deep inside of every child in Head Start. It's actually
Right.
deep inside of everybody, but it gets washed away, beaten away, shunted away, educated away. That's the worst.
Educated away sometimes.
So what is happening when Head Start is on the chopping block? What is happening to the America that we like?
They want to take away hope.
Take away hope. And if I lose hope, I get depressed.
Right. And we don't fight against these ridiculous sign it in or whatever,
Right. We don't.
executive orders.
Right. Right. And we don't have faith that anything is going to change. Hope means that there is a possible brighter future.
Right. And when
I
you work in an environment where hope is propagated,
Hmm?
then you can that hope rubs off on those families and those children and those coworkers, and it's a beautiful thing.
I mean, Denise, what you do with monarch butterflies, you that's giving children hope because they can help this powerless, vulnerable little egg,
Tiniest egg you ever saw.
tiniest egg you ever saw, not get eaten by other caterpillars, not get eaten by spiders, not get eaten, but like a child can create a free and safe space for that little egg to develop. And then the little egg turns into this little curious looking, very hungry caterpillar.
Tiny little caterpillar, and it grows and it grows and it grows.
As long as it's got support
Right.
and food and the right environment and somebody who cares. A child learning with you how to raise a monarch butterfly is learning all the skills of life.
Right.
And then a child who learns to do that within herself. What if we have a child that is gifted at sewing? And people go, sewing, that's just something girls do. Sewing, that's, but what if this person can create beautiful artwork? And what if this person comes from a culture like Laos or Cambodia, where people are ripped away from their countries and taken on boats, and many people die on the boats? And what if this person has the ability to create artwork that puts into an actual seeable work of art the pathway that her family took to come across the water, to live in a camp, then to fly hours and hours and hours to a country and then start again. So this little girl that can sew becomes the person who documents, memorializes, and honors her people's history. So everybody has a gift and a
Everybody
strength.
has something to give. Everybody does.
So but if I want to feel superior, what's going on inside of me if I want to feel superior to all these people and I want to cut them off?
Actually, very low self-esteem. You don't think you're worthy. So you have to prove you're worthy by taking it away by conquering something else. It's a lack of self-esteem, really, much as they think of it as a display of their power. But you don't have to display power when you're powerful.
The theory, and I don't agree with the theory, but I'll share the theory, which you probably know. The theory about what creates a narcissist is that the narcissist was severely abused and then responds by becoming stronger so nobody can possibly touch the narcissist. And although I think that's possible, what I see more of, maybe because my eyes are looking for this, but what I see more of is when someone's abused, that person develops real compassion.
Right. Real sensitivity, real desire to make it better for someone else. I thought I was saving my sisters by succumbing to abuse. I wasn't, but I believed I was.
And in my own way, when I accepted my father's beatings and incestuous abuse, I was honoring the family because I was keeping the family's secret. Nobody would ever know until I broke out and started telling the truth. Nobody would ever know that this man was doing these things.
Right.
Nobody would ever know that. And if nobody ever knew it, then the centuries and the decades and the generations after generations could pass on doing that until women got built into us, inherited lack of self-esteem, inherited expectation of abuse. It's like the studies done on the the children of the survivors of concentration camps. Those children, their parents might never have told them even about being in a concentration camp, but those children have a greater likelihood, greater propinquity to be anxious, to be scared, to be vulnerable, not as confident. So all of this stuff builds up in our genetics over the century. And if somebody doesn't break out, how do we break out? And now what we're experiencing right now in the United States is we broke out.
Right.
We broke out. And now not all of us, but the message is if you broke out, you don't belong.
Right.
We voted
And
for.
they're going to they're trying to cut out our hope that others can break out too.
That's right. The man who's now the Attorney General believes that the 19th Amendment should be repealed. Why do we need women to vote? if in fact women have the purpose of begetting children. That's your job.
And keeping the home.
Keep the home nice for the man to come home to. Yeah. So all of those, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we are ruthless right now. We're ruthless.
Right.
She worked so hard to make sure that there were every person, gender didn't matter, could have hope, and hope manifested. And so it's like going back to the dark ages, because hope is light.
Right. Yeah, they want to go back, and we can't. Once we saw it, we saw it. Once we grew up with knowing that women could burn their bras, we burned our bras. We
Once we
have
got
hope.
it, you got it, honey. United
Right.
States Supreme Court, talk about hope and no hope, Denise. United States Supreme Court wrote a decision that I acted out with my law school classmates. And the decision said women's brains are not capable of studying the law because women's brains are very finite. We can only look at specific little things, and that makes us good for cleaning the home and raising babies. But we can't look at the big picture. We can't see beyond details. And so we can't become attorneys. And there were women, brilliant women in the 19th century who studied by sitting in their father's offices.
Right.
And they, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, all these people that could have been great attorneys, but they were not allowed to, just like all the people that were not allowed to become doctors. But you're right. And there's a phrase from World War I. How are you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Perry? And so when people have seen that women's brains can do,
they exceed.
Right? And what about these children from poverty? Does that mean that they're not going to do well? No, it means let them find their strength and they'll do beautifully.
Right. They are going to have resilience that a privileged white boy, gets mad, pouts, right, stomps his feet, punches someone. But children that have seen hope and who have been given opportunity, they have sensitivities that are not available to the privileged.
And the other thing that goes along with that is broadly called emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, the ability to read people as well as read books, means that we care about other people,
Our fellows.
And we learn to care about ourselves. If we do that, we can't just cut some people out because we don't like the way they look. If we do that, we can't cut people out because we don't like their orientation. We can't do that. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, that's a whole way of life. That's a whole way of life. Just like affirmative action was. I mean, I loved when Michelle Obama at the Democratic election said, affirmative action, honey, the white boys have had that for years.
Right.
When dad had all this money. And so you got the affirmative action was you're going to get into Princeton. You're going to get, and when I went to college, I would date guys from Princeton. And some of those guys didn't have the smarts to be anywhere in terms of like that traditional type of university, but they were called legacies. And what did I find out a legacy was? A legacy was Uncle Johnny was an alumnus of Princeton. And see that building over there? That's Uncle John Althrop's building. And you know what? Yeah, we're
going to bring him along, right?
Bring him along.
Nepotism.
That's right.
His nephew and that guy's nephew.
And so when Michelle Obama said, did anybody tell this guy running for president that the presidency might be a black job?
That was
It's,
awesome.
what does it take? What does it take to be a real president? It takes something like Jimmy Carter, who had enough emotional intelligence to care about people everywhere on earth. It takes enough emotional intelligence, like Abraham Lincoln, to see the country wasn't going to survive if we couldn't have respect. Everybody born in this country. And now what happens today? We see that, oh my God, being born in this country doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Get rid of the Constitution. Sweetheart, it's tough. It's tough to be trauma survivors because we were traumatized from the get-go. And now when this threat life, of life, which is threat of hope,
Right. Life.
when that's taken away, we get re-traumatized, and re-traumatization can literally freeze us into terror. And that dynamic is known. If I could
Right.
just scare people,
If we're in terror, then we trigger these thoughts in our mind of, I'm not worthy. I deserve this. These negative, hopeless thoughts that,
that's right.
right, that we learned and that they're encouraging. They want us.
That's our 2-minute sign here.
Okay,
New
good.
Year. Denise usually gives me the sign, so I'm just enjoying being able to do that.
Well, you got it. Your turn.
Here's the truth: the fear, the perpetual fear that is now being promulgated all over this country, is an instant retriggering to subservience, to giving up, to giving in, and to
Some people aren't
hopelessness.
worthy. That's what they're saying. Some people aren't worthy. Are you one?
And how do I know I'm one? Did you choose me? Well, I'm looking at myself. You didn't choose me because I'm a woman. And what was it? One of the things said was, if I'm over the age of producing children, I don't
Right.
have any worth anymore. Right?
Well, you could watch your daughter-in-law's kids.
Right. That's right. You could watch you could, hire out not hire out, just give as a babysitter.
Right.
That's always something we can do. Yeah. So yeah, it's about a worth. It's about a merit, not even a meritocracy. It's about because that means that there's merit, there's goodness. Merit is
No,
goodness.
it's only the privilege, only the billionaires are worthy. So, if we follow what their recommendations and regulations are,
To
which
make government
they claim, Republicans claim to be against too much regulation. But when you take away regulations that were meant to equalize, you're giving them more power.
yeah. I have a simple thing. I need to renew my passport. I think I have a 10-year passport, and it's the end of this year, it's going to be up. And I was thinking, all of the federal government stuff that just renews passports doesn't even talk about it. Doesn't that was a natural thing. Now, well, maybe we'll have to decide who gets a passport and who doesn't.
Right.
And that Bruno person over there, yeah, look at all those posts she made. Look at all those articles she wrote. Look at all those things she did that said, yeah, no, maybe we need to either get rid of her so she can go to certain countries, or if she goes away, maybe we're not going to let her back in.
Yeah, she always writes Don Old. What's wrong with
Oh,
her?
oh, I know. I know this is bad.
That's what I always
Girlfriend,
write.
I hear you. I got you. So we're just about at the end. How would you make sense of this whole thing, what we've been talking about?
I believe that, we are in a huge cycle of history and that we're going to have this tumultuous period. And we're going to keep hope alive right in here. This little light of mine,
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to let it
let it
shine.
shine. Oh, this
This
little light of
light of
mine.
mine. I'm
Um,
gonna let it shine. Interesting. My Black Lives Matter demonstration that I do on Mondays and Wednesday morning or
right.
afternoons, we do with a nun, and she had broke her foot like
Oh,
9 months ago, and so finally a couple weeks ago she was able to come back. And
yeah,
this morning, and she's still not 100%, so I go pick her up at the Holy Rosary place and say hi to Holy Mary because there's a lot of Holy Mary statues around.
that's right.
And she got into the van today and she said, "Oh my God, blah, 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 blah." A million things were happening to her, you know. And so I started singing, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna
I'm
let
gonna
it
let
shine."
it shine.
And I said, "Sister, I don't have the same faith as you, but singing songs really has always helped my faith." She goes, "That's right." So I think she felt better because she had a little hope.
Yes, a little light, a little light ignites another light.
And once
Yeah,
you start singing that song, it comes back all day long.
I know, I know. Bringing with it the light.
Right.
Um,
Every good moment, every good time, every good little spark.
so I think I'd like to say goodbye to people, and just so you know, we come to join you, and we invite you to join us every Monday in United States East Coast. It's 3 in the afternoon. In Oxford, England, it's 8 in the evening. If you're in India, it's probably pretty late at night. But you know what? Wherever you are, you know someone or you yourself have survived trauma. And when we've survived trauma, that injures our insides and it can injure us so that we no longer have hope. And we
With
also have
support, with
with
support, with
support.
encouragement, with models who have reignited their own hope, we you can have hope again.
We got hope, honey.
We
We
do
might
have
be
hope.
crazy. We might be outrageous. I don't give a sweet bippy. But if you got hope, you got everything. And that is the beginning of resilience. And we're going through a time that requires not just resilience, but we ain't got nothing without hope. So
Right.
keep the hope alive and join us every Monday. And you know what? 2 minutes left.